you say you are. Nobody can touch me.
Suppose we better register you as a lethal weapon. You ever met anybody you didn't kill?
Well, I haven't killed you yet.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars. I'm here to bring you another classic film review. Today I'm taking a look at the 1987 classic 80s action film Lethal Weapon. The film is directed by the late great Richard Donner and it stars Mel Gibson, Danny Glover, Gary Busey, Mitchell Ryan and Tom Atkins. Now the film follows Detective Martin Riggs and Roger Murtaugh, played by Gibson and Danny Glover, respectively. At the beginning of the film, Martin Riggs is a suicidal cop. He's on the edge. He lost his wife several months previously in a car accident, and he's not in a good place. He wants to commit suicide. He is teamed up with Danny Glover's character, Roger Murtaugh, who is 50 years old. He's getting closer to retirement. And he is not best pleased being partnered with someone who many believe has got a death wish and is on a suicide mission. They end up on the case of a young lady called Amanda Hunsaker who is seemingly murdered. This opens a can of worms that leads them to ex-mercenaries linked to Vietnam drug deals, and they've got to take down the bad guys before they take them down. Right, what are my thoughts on Lethal Weapon? Well, I thought I would revisit the Lethal Weapon franchise, one of my favourite franchises of all time. I am a big fan of these films. I like all of them, and I know that there are probably some out there that would, not big fans of some of them, but I actually like them all. I'm not going to say I like them all equally, but I think they all have a place in regards to the evolution of these characters, and they're all entertaining in their own way. However, the first one was the introduction to these characters. We could argue that this was the film that turned Mel Gibson into a megastar in the 80s. I mean, he was known at this point, obviously, from the Mad Max films, but he was, I think you could argue, on the fringe of real stardom until Lethal Weapon came out, and they absolutely catapulted him into superstardom. I think these guys didn't create the buddy cop, but they perfected it, you could say, the buddy cop movie. Obviously, you've got films that did this before, but I don't think any other film really got it just as good and right as the Lethal Weapon franchise. And you could say that about all of them, but especially in the first one. I just love revisiting the Lethal Weapon films. It's been a number of years since I've seen them, and watching the first one again to get ready for this review, I just lapped it up. Absolutely loved it. There's no real flaws that I can give you in regards to the first Lethal Weapon film. It's a pitch perfect film. As 80s action films go, it actually has aged remarkably well, I think. It is a stunning film, beautifully shot. Of course it is by Richard Donner, but it's got the iconic Michael Kamen-like soundtrack. It's got that unbelievable chemistry between Gibson and Glover. It's got a great couple of villains in Gary Busey and Mitchell Ryan, and it's got characters that you really care about, and you care about them very, very quickly. Murtaugh, who's the family man, Riggs, who's the guy on the edge, the one who's suicidal, and Gibson plays that so well. The looks that he comes out with on his face in this film, when he's going crazy. At times it's comical when he's doing the Three Stooges act with the drug deal at the beginning of the film, where he says, yeah, you're calling me crazy, you think I'm crazy, I'll show you crazy, and then he does his whole routine and slaps him and pulls the gun out. I mean, it's hilarious, and then just a few minutes later, when he loses it and he's telling the guy to shoot him, And then the look in his eyes. I mean, it's very intense and it's so convincing. And the film as well has moments of lightness in it, which was a very, very smart move, and kind of defined the series and the franchise going forward. And some may argue that they got too comical. But Shane Black, who wrote this, one of the great writers of action films and of an incredibly talented director on his own merits, and directed one of my favourite films of all time, which was The Nice Guys. His original draft for this film, his original screenplay, was much darker. It had, flashbacks to the Vietnam War, very, very gritty and dark scenes. There was cut scenes with snipers in it and all sorts, which you can still see if you watch, like if you've got like the Blu-ray box set. There's the special edition of Lethal Weapon. It's got some of the deleted scenes on it, and I think Richard Donner was wise to lighten aspects of the film. It doesn't change the fact that it is still quite dark in places, and the whole conclusion to the film, where they kidnap Murtaugh's daughter, and they've got to kind of try and get her back. It's edge of the seat stuff. The whole escape from the nightclub, and then trying to chase down Joshua, and then one of my favourite scenes in this film involves Murtaugh when he's like, General McAllister, time for you to die, and then he kind of drags himself up off the floor to go and find the guy that kidnapped his daughter. And I mean, it's proper intense stuff. The stunts are fantastic. The relationships between the characters are fantastic, and it's got, in my opinion, one of my favourite fight scenes of all time at the end of the film between Mel Gibson and Gary Busey, Mr. Joshua. It's confusing. It's edited strangely. You're not really sometimes sure about what you're seeing, but it's just fantastic. I just absolutely love the fight scene at the end of the film. So I thought this was probably, for me, one of the finest action films that the 1980s could offer anybody. I adore this franchise so much. I prefer this franchise to the Die Hard franchise, and don't get me wrong, I love the Die Hard franchise. Many action film franchises that you want to throw at me, I think this is probably my favourite action franchise if I had to pick one. And it's mainly due to the characters. I just love revisiting these characters, and seeing what they're getting up to, and the whole dynamics of them, and how each film kind of stands on its own 2 feet, sort of thing, with a fresh story, and your real progress for the characters moving forward. And I just love that. I just think it's such a strong franchise. And the first one, Lethal Weapon, for me, probably the best. I think that's probably arguable. Some people may debate that. I remember the second one was my favourite for quite a long time. But we can discuss that as the reviews go forward, and I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Interestingly as well, I mean, Gibson, I think, was about 30 when he made this film, and apparently his character was meant to be in his late 30s, because if you actually analyse it, because he was in the Vietnam War himself, he would have been a very, very young man in the Vietnam War if he had been portrayed as a 30-year-old in the film. And Danny Glover was actually 40 years old when he filmed this, playing a 50-year-old character. So yeah, they kind of, one was older than they portrayed, and one was younger than they portrayed, which was quite interesting. So yeah, guys, let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on the Lethal Weapon franchise. I will be revisiting all the others, but I will also be revisiting some classic 80s movies as well. I'm going to do like a whole series of classic 80s movies, so give me some suggestions in the comments of films that you'd like to see me review from the 1980s, and I will definitely consider them, because they were probably some of the best films of all time in the 80s. So thanks for joining me, guys. I will speak to you soon, and I will obviously be back with plenty more reviews and content for you very, very soon.